Traveling tend to be expensive. Going to Paris, $650. Going to Japan, $900. Importing a mediocre game from the Switch, $85. Wait, what? So yeah, recently Octopath Traveler was imported from the Switch to PC for a whopping $85, which was very surprising for two reasons. First, the game was already out on the Switch since the 18th of July 2018, which make it a year-old game. Second, the game is a classic turn-based JRPG, and you can find a lot of them for dirt cheap on Steam, such as, but not limited to, Final Fantasy X, Trail in the Sky, Chrono Trigger, and that's without counting the non-Japanese turn-based RPG like XCOM, Undertale, Darkest Dungeon, Divinity Original Sin 2. So yeah, a lot of competition all around. I would understand you guys having high expectation at this point. Does it deliver? No, fuck no. So in Octopath Traveler, you follow the story of Tyrion, Primrose, Cyrus, Tressa, Anit, Ophelia, Arfin, and Oberek. You pick one as your main character and then you recruit the other 7 as party member. Each character has their own story, and you can complete all of them in one playthrough. Some of those storylines are captivating and interesting, some are decent, and some are completely garbage. Your Excellency. I would say that the characters all have their own personality. You got the like of Tyrion, a prideful thief with a good heart that doesn't want to admit it. Or you got Cyrus, that is a scholar who's also great at seeking information and making great deduction, while at the same time being totally blind when it comes to romance. Those are not outstanding character backstory, but you can definitely not criticize them for being too bland or flavorless. The problem is that even though they are unique, some are uniquely boring, on top of the intrigue being very weak at the time. Let me give you an example. Let's take Ophelia. Ophelia is a traveling sister for the church and has to stop by this town to rekindle the church flame. However, the intrigue of this chapter is to find a brooch that some kids lost. This is the whole chapter. In the past, I've seen side story being more interesting than that. And that's without taking into account Ophelia's boring ass personality, where her biggest character trait is that she's nice and polite. Every character has 4 of those chapters in their story. A chapter takes roughly an hour to beat, so finishing all of those storylines take at the least 35 hours. If you follow them, at a certain point, you'll skip them because they're boring. That being said, those stories are not connected to one another. If you follow the story of Tyrion, let's just say, you won't see any reference or cameo from another traveler. From time to time, you will be able to see some banter in between characters. Those are the most uninteresting conversations I've ever seen. I want to see the meaning where people thought that what JRPG were lacking of is monotonous small talk in between main character. Let's just compare for 2 seconds a conversation between main character in Octopath Traveler and in Tale of Berseria. See how one doesn't show any kind of fucking emotion and doesn't add any fucking thing to the story? Anyway, those banter are one of the 2 things that connect everyone together. The other one is an overarching story that you can see bits of in every character's storyline. However, you only really get to the bottom of it when you get to the ultimate post-game dungeon, which you can only reach after doing an insane amount of tasks. Basically, to see what really connect all of those fuckers together, you need to finish all of their storyline, finish some very specific side quests, and then teleport to this dungeon, which you can only access by talking to this guy. And then, you have to beat the dungeon. FYI, this dungeon has 9 bosses in it. Good fucking luck! Oh yeah, the very specific side quests that you have to beat to get to the dungeon, the game doesn't tell you that those are way much more important than the other side quests. So in the vast sea of generic side quests, you got 2 or 3 that are significantly more important story-wise. You gotta love that there is no developer that worked on this game that thought, maybe we should put a sign or change the icon color to reflect the importance of this idiot. Nah, fuck that. While on the subject of side quests, 90% of them consist of going up to someone, use one of your character's unique ability, and then get a reward. Unique ability are stuff like steal, inquire, provoke. It's said that there's not a lot of variety when it comes to side quests, and even main quests. I would have appreciated quests like find this hidden item, or kill this mobs a certain amount of time. Whether it's the main plot or some side quests, you kinda just get bored of it at a certain point, and you start skipping it to get to the boss and reward. Talking about boss, we will now travel to the land of game mechanic. A good starting point to look at the game mechanic in this game is the job system. Every character start with their own job. Job are like class, they affect the spell that you can learn, stat, your passive skill, and the weapon you can use. You can also have a secondary job on every character, which really open a world of possibility when it comes to building your team. If you feel like a job is superior, like merchant let's just say, you can have Tressa in your party, whose primary job is merchant, and you can also have another character in your team who's gonna run merchant, but as a secondary job. There's 8 basic jobs, but if you beat some of the game's optional dungeon, you can unlock an additional 4 advanced jobs. The thing is, those additional jobs are hard to get, as they require that you beat some insanely strong boss. Those bosses are significantly stronger than the final boss storyline. It's a big letdown because it adds a lot to the game, but you can only really unlock them post-game, so a casual player that just do the main story of a couple of characters might pass out on some great gameplay diversity. That being said, I would still say that the combat system is great. Having conventional stuff like weapon, magic, unique hero ability, and a turn bar that is affected by speed and whether or not your enemy is broken. The break system is one of those areas where the game innovates a little bit. Breaking an enemy will cause them to skip all the turns that are left in the turn bar. And when an enemy is broken, the damage they will receive is multiplied by 1.5, allowing the player to do an insane amount of damage during that turn. And boy, can you do a humongous amount of damage in this game. Okay, so there's a couple of ways you can do a shit ton of damage in this game, even early on. They are mainly centered around the power of money.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money,
So the game is an open world, meaning that level 1 you can access all of the map, even high level area, without too much difficulty. Which means that if you got the character Tressa, who get money visiting new places, you can get to high level merchant and buy their strong ass equipment without doing any fight prior to that point, except maybe killing the chapter 1 boss of Tressa's storyline. Talking about our good friend Tressa, she also got a skill called Hire Help. For a next amount of money, you can hire some goons to beat the fuck out of an enemy. Due to the fact that Tressa is a ridiculously strong character, it kinda completely removed the notion of difficulty for most of the game. However, I do love a game that teaches players the power of capitalism, and it does raise my respect for this game from mediocre to slightly less mediocre. And that's pretty much where my hype for this game die. Mobs have generic design and are zero challenging. They aren't hard whatsoever. But sometimes, even under level enemy can take you a couple of turns because you have to break them to kill them, or your strongest character for some reason always play last. And if you're grinding, it will feel like a lot of your time is wasted cycling through enemy that should take 2 seconds to beat, but doesn't. Nonetheless, bosses late game oppose some serious threat, and it is really fun to rack your brain over finding strat to beat them. Before I'm done with this bullshit and never touch this game ever again, let's talk a little bit about the soundtrack environment. The soundtrack is pretty good, but nothing really touched you emotionally like a Trail in the Sky would. Same goes for the area. There's detail and deepness to it, but nothing astonishing. And at a certain point, I realized that all the dimensions kinda look the same. Same goes for the dungeon. The whole thing becomes visually boring. To go full circle and wrap the video, I think the game is worth about $10, and I think it's shameful that the current price is $85. Alright, that's gonna be it for the video. I'm glad I did this review, even though I spent a lot of time and a lot of money on a game that I didn't really like. But it was fun to do. I like to put some negative review on time to time to balance with the positive one. I was really late on this one, and hopefully this is gonna come up a month after the first one, or the first that I uploaded last month. And the next one should be out in a month again ish. I already know what game I'm gonna review. And yeah, that's gonna be it for today. Have a good day. Peace.